Ahoy! Get ready to take a trip from the upper Chesapeake Bay to the Outer Banks by way of the Intracoastal Waterway on the trusty sailing vessel Spider Roll. This was a 4-day trip. The first day was from Kent Island to Solomon's Island. We start by leaving my home marina in Kent Island and going through the Kent Narrows drawbridge into Prospect Bay. I've taken this path countless times before. The fixed bridge just north of the drawbridge has 75 feet of clearance, and the drawbridge during the summer season opens on the half hour on demand. Quick notes about Spider Roll. She's a 38-foot long catamaran, draws 4 feet of water, and needs 61 feet of air draft, by my estimate, to safely avoid anything on the top of the mast. That 61 feet will let me traverse the ICW 65-foot bridges. Most of the bridges appear to be 65 feet, and there is no bridge lower than 65 feet. That means even if there's 1 or 2 feet of higher water, I should be good. Here we're passing one of the bay's many crab boats. You'll see a lot of them, especially in the mornings. After leaving Kent Narrows, the channel opens up into Prospect Bay, which will soon put us in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay, just south of Annapolis. My goal for taking the time to edit and post this video is to be informative for others looking to transit the Intracoastal Waterway from the Chesapeake to the Outer Banks. When I researched ahead of this trip, I found entertaining video snippets and official details on bridge openings, but not enough information to make me feel like I knew what to expect. I've never been in a lock before, and I was apprehensive about the traffic and many bridges we'd be at the mercy of. I was really concerned about what I didn't know. I had used drawbridges before in the bay, but had never gone under a bridge that was only 65 feet high, which is the spec of the ICW. As I said before, I've never been a lock on my boat or on other people's boats. My extended family is going on vacation together to the Outer Banks, and I'm taking the boat there so that we can enjoy it and explore the sounds with day sails, but also because I'm personally excited to transit the ICW, which I've heard a lot about from others in the bay, but have never thought to take before. Since my family is staying near Kitty Hawk, docking the boat in Roanoke Island makes a lot of sense. I considered taking the outside route, but the consensus among Annapolis area sailors I've discussed this trip with is that the Oregon Inlet is far too dangerous for sailboats, and if I were to sail farther south to Ocracoke and then back up to Pamlico Sound, that would add way too much time and distance to the trip to make it worthwhile. So the ICW it is. Having said that, and having completed this trip, interestingly enough, once I got to the Outer Banks, I received new information from locals that Oregon Inlet has significantly changed in the past year, making sailboats a now common sight. On the way back, I did take the outside route, and I'll have another video for that. For your sake, I'm trying to skim through day one, but still have a complete time lapse. We were in the main bay, now we're turning into Solomon's Island. What's not captured in the time lapse is that we got to enjoy many flybys of Navy fighter aircraft as soon as we started entering the mouth of the Patuxent River. The adjacent Naval Air Station, Pax River, is home to the U.S. Navy's Test Pilot School, so we presume we have witnessed future astronauts going through their advanced training program. I'm a Safe Harbor member, so I was able to book this Safe Harbor Marina Zanizers for free. And they gave us our slip assignment on the app. As we got close, I radioed the marina just to let them know we're there, and Dockmaster Dave is out there just helping us with some lines and answering any questions we have. Casting off at sunrise gives us the most light to get to the Norfolk end of the bay by dusk. And the bonus is that it's simply the most beautiful time to be on the water. This time lapse speeds through the 12 hours of open water or so that we're just in the middle of the bay. But my sister and I really enjoyed this day as it was so open, except for the occasional big container ship or fishing trawler. And we actually did get some decent sailing weather late in the day. This was a total 4-day trip, as I said. The first day was from Kent Island to Solomon's Island. The second day is to Hampton, Norfolk. The third day is Norfolk to Coinjock. And the fourth day is an easy trip to the town of Manteo on Roanoke Island. So this trip was designed to be one easy day, one long day, one unpredictable day, followed by a very easy day. This was done because I really don't have any idea how long it would have taken us to get from Norfolk to Coinjock. There are 11 bridges and a lock that we are at the mercy of, and I frankly had no idea how long that could take. I've heard of people doing it in half a day, 2 days, and so I figured if we did it this way, and we either got delayed, say our long day to Norfolk took longer than we thought it would, or our ICW section took a lot longer than we thought it would, we'd still get there. We could make up that time on the last day, and we could still get there before sort of the rest of our extended family got to Outer Banks. As we turn towards Fort Monroe, we enter the shipping channel. There are some large cargo ships astern, but they are miles away, and AIS is telling me we have an hour from the closest one catching us. And by that time, we'll be out of the lane. Be mindful of all traffic when entering the shipping lane. Don't listen to Captain Ron, who says they'll get out of our way. You really don't want to be within a few hundred feet of their wake. The camera angle isn't great, but to starboard is Fort Monroe, which has guarded the Chesapeake Bay for 500 years. About 10 years ago, it was deactivated by the U.S. Army and turned into a park. Next to it is a popular anchorage. However, we are again staying at a Safe Harbor Marina for free, Safe Harbor Blue Water in Hampton. Okay, this is the big day. We're going to go from Norfolk, Virginia to Coinjock, North Carolina via the Intracoastal Waterway. Today we are going to pass 11 movable bridges. Some are drawbridges, some are lift bridges, some are swing bridges, and we're going to pass a lock. I have no idea, or I had no idea how long this was going to take, and we'll see how it goes. The primary controller of our time today is the lock. In notice to mariners, the lock has been under construction for the last couple months, and according to the information I found, it is on a reduced schedule. It only opens every other hour. So it'll open at 10 a.m., it'll open up again at 12 a.m., and I am scheduling today to try to hit it at 10 with high certainty and not get there after 10, which would make us wait till noon. I really wish I thought ahead and put the GoPro on facing port for this part of the trip. We really enjoyed passing by all the Navy ships in the shipyard. The 2 aircraft carriers are humbling in their size. Underway, it is illegal to get within 1,500 feet of a U.S. Navy ship, but here we are only a couple hundred feet from these giants. You can make them out from 4 miles away, and they just grow as you get closer and closer. Interesting fact, Norfolk is the world's largest naval base and world's largest concentration of U.S. Navy ships, which today is about 75. Something to keep in mind, throughout Norfolk and Portsmouth, you will hear weird things. You will smell weird things. Keep this in mind because if you're like me, when you hear or smell something unexpected, you start trying to figure out what is wrong on your boat that is making that noise or smell. Nothing is wrong with your boat. It is assuredly coming from the many thousands of workers getting these ships ready for their next deployments. We're about to overtake a tug on port named Island Pilot. What I don't know yet is that this will be our traveling companion most of the day. I'm going to ignore the fixed bridges and focus on the movable bridges that we need to be open in order to pass. The exception you'll see when we come to it is the I-64 bridge, which is 65 feet but arched. Fuck that bridge. Our first bridge on the ICW is the N&PBL Railroad Bridge. 6 feet of clearance closed. Lucky for us, it is open. As is the case with railroad bridges, they should be open unless a train is coming, and there is no bridge tender to talk to on the radio. However, if they are open and about to close soon, an announcement should be broadcast on VHF Channel 13. 1.2 miles after that first railroad bridge is the next one, the N&W Railroad Bridge. 9 feet of clearance closed, open for us as well. Again, you should be glued to VHF 13 right now. .2 miles after the last bridge, we have two bridges. The Gilmerton Highway Bridge, which is on demand but it blacks out rush hour traffic, and the N&S Railroad Bridge just behind it. Radioing the bridge tender, he informed us that the railroad bridge is down and likely so for another 15 minutes until a train passes. And the train has passed. It is 1.3 miles to my favorite bridge. I'm already nervous as I've never taken Spider under a 65-foot bridge before. I get close. I get closer. This feels wrong as I notice the arch, and there's a construction worker hanging from the bridge telling me I'm way off. Abort, abort, abort. I look at the construction worker. Assuming he's 6 feet tall, I compare him to the curve of the arch. I almost lost my mast. I need to hit this thing right in the middle, or this is going to be an incredibly bad day. The tugboat captain from earlier is behind me, and seeing someone in a catamaran who has no idea what they're doing calls me on the VHF radio and tells me to let him pass. I calculated that his barge probably weighs 3,000 tons, so it would be a very, very bad day if I abort again right in front of him. After looking at the bridge for a moment, I think I figured it out. The bridge is actually diagonal to the channel. That's why it was throwing me off. In addition, the span guard rails are placed way off from the actual center of the bridge. So what I need to do is hug one rail, then align myself with the diagonal bridge, then realign, and I just ran aground trying to line myself up. Maybe it was hard or maybe it was just me, but I had to hit it at the diagonal just right, and by doing so, I got really close to hitting the guardrails. So maybe it's more difficult in a wide sailboat like mine. And this 65-foot flat bridge is a relief. From the I-64 bridge, it is 4.4 miles to the lock. There are a lot of boats in line for the lock. From Channel 13, the canal lockmaster is going to open on demand for the tug Island Pilot and its commercial cargo. The tug will enter the lock first on the port side, then boats will line up on the starboard side of the lock next to the tug. I'm too wide to fit, so I'm going to be on starboard but behind the tug. Here's what to expect. The canal worker will take your lines, wrap it around a cleat, and hand them back to you to secure. We had fenders out ahead of time, but the walls of the canal have these big black rubber fenders. The lock gave us some time to relax. It took about 10 minutes for the water to rise 2 feet. We made small talk with our fellow lock patrons, and then we were off. The boats alongside the tug and barge went first, according to the lockmaster on the radio, then the tug, then us and those behind us. Immediately after the lock, there's a bridge that is supposed to be synchronized with the lock opening, but I think because of the on-demand opening we got to take advantage of, we had to wait another 20 minutes for the bridge. There is a nice park you can tie up to and even dock overnight at. There's a fuel dock right after the bridge, so we stopped to top everything off. This is the Albemarle and Chesapeake Canal. There is a dredged channel in the middle that is consistently 12 feet to 10 feet. There are trees sticking out of the water on both sides, so definitely stick in the middle. Given that the tug and barge went through here before us, I expect they drag bottom on the sides. I also see a number of floating logs in the middle, which are probably harmless, but I usually steer to avoid. The A&C Railroad Bridge is already open for us. Here is the first swing bridge we've seen, the Centerville Turnpike swing bridge. Open on the half hour, blocked out for rush hour. We had motored hard from the fuel dock in order to hit this just right, and it's already open for us. We catch up to the tug Island Pilot just as the North Landing swing bridge is opening. And that is the last of the 9 movable bridges on our trip down the ICW. I looked up the AIS history of this tug and infer that Island Pilot is taking thousands of tons of scrap metal from Philadelphia to Edmonton. While most of the boats we saw in the ICW are pleasure craft like us, burning gallons of diesel for recreation, Here is a skilled crew hustling to take scrap metal originating from recycling centers to a place where it can be smelted back into needed goods. This creates huge environmental benefit as their journey eliminates the need to mine this iron from the earth. We wait for a long straightaway to overtake them, coordinating over VHF, and wish them a safe rest of their journey. Now that we've made it through the controlled section of this trip, let's talk about the numbers. This controlled and high traffic section I deem to be the Norfolk shipyard to the North Landing Swing Bridge. Those 23 miles took us 6 hours. Ideally, we could have not had the railroad bridge, nor stopped for fuel, nor have 3 attempts at that one arch bridge, and we could have done it in 5 hours. On the other hand, we could have had worse luck around bridges, and it taken 7 hours. I think 6 hours seems about right. I think if I were to try it a few more times, I'd probably get 6 plus or minus 1 hours each time. And that's for a boat that can motor at 8 knots in this section. We're still winding down the North Landing River, and we have about 8 miles to go until we hit both the North Carolina border, where it opens up into the Currituck Sound. The GoPro was plugged into a small battery block, and unfortunately it died just as we were getting into the Currituck Sound. The sound was pretty uneventful. It was very beautiful. There's wide open water, which makes you almost want to try to go outside the channel, but it's just too shallow. And after about 12 miles of that, we reached Coinjock. It was super straightforward. Cruiser guides raved about Coinjock, and it was absolutely great. This was the sort of experience I was hoping for in taking the ICW. Everyone there are friendly cruisers, also taking the ICW either north or south and stopping there for the night. They have an excellent restaurant. A lot of the cruiser guides talk about the prime rib. That was good. Their seafood was great. If I were to take this route again and I didn't need to stop at Coinjock, I think I would want to just to grab a meal there. The other thing that surprised me was how big their marina store was. They had lots and lots of swag, but they also had a mini, sort of like a mini West Marine. They had a huge selection of all the fluids and filters and pretty much anything else you could think of for working on your boat or repairing your boat. I also got a big Coinjock sticker, which I added to my collection on the boat fridge. Here, the North River starts to open up into Albemarle Sound. The other thing that happens is as soon as you get to about this point, you just start getting swarmed by dragonflies. Just everywhere, dragonflies. And we pretty much had dragonflies in our entire Outer Banks trip on the Sounds. With no major delays in the previous 3 days, we had plenty of time to get there before the rest of our family members got to the Outer Banks. The wind was decent, so we finally got to use this sailboat the way it was intended for a couple hours in the Sounds. Turning into Shallow Bag Bay, there is a shoal right in the middle of the channel. The GoPro is deliberately on the port side to get a good view of Manteo and the lighthouse, but now I see on the starboard is a recreation of the Roanoke colony ship. Manteo was a really fun town, and I wish we had more time to spend there. The historical Lost Colony stuff was cool. There was also a brew pub called Lost Colony that makes their own beer. Another sticker for the fridge.